Guard, post the colors.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the hope of the brave?
Thank you very much to the members of the GPS Choir. Chaplain Palomaria, please come forward to give the invocation.
We thank you, Lord of the universe, keeper of the high spaces, watcher beyond time, for these 6 men and for their ideas, hard work, and service in support of military space and missile programs. Our country would not be where it is today without their meaningful contributions. We are also grateful for their families and are honored that so many of them could attend the ceremony today. This is a place of rejoicing in the same way spring gives way to summer, so is your love for those we honor. We thank and praise you for their great works which shines before a million stars. We thank you for the rich history of Space Command, how you must be smiling at the contribution of the Space and Missile Systems Center to the human race. We too are profoundly moved by its heritage and positive impact on our lives and the world in which we live. We ask this prayer and your blessings on all today in the name of the Maker of heaven and earth. Amen.
Before we continue to the ceremony today, I would like to take a moment to welcome our honored guests. Please hold your applause until they have all been announced. We are pleased to have with us today Miss Ruth Ann Thompson, the wife of Lieutenant General John F. Thompson, Commander, Space and Missile Systems Center. The Honorable Drew Boyles, Mayor, City of El Segundo. Lieutenant General Retired Mike Hamill, former Commander, Space and Missile Systems Center. Major General Retired Gary Schnelzer, former Program Executive Officer for the Acquisition of Space Programs. Major General Retired Gary Schnelzer, former Program Executive Officer for the Acquisition of Space Programs. Major General Retired Marty Whalen, former Director of Future Operations, Deputy Chief of Staff for Operations, Headquarters, United States Air Force. Ms. Daisy Panaiga Urabe, representing Congressman Ted Lieu. Mr. Colby Harriman, District Representative, representing State Senator Ben Allen. Ms. Melissa Ramoso, representing State Assembly Member Al Marasucci. Chief Master Sergeant Scott Myers, Command Chief Master Sergeant, Space and Missile Systems Center. Mr. Cordell Dela Pena Jr., Director, Program Management and Integration Directorate. Colonel Charles Roberts, 61st Air Base Group Commander. Dr. George Polycus, 2016 Schriever Wall of Honor honoree and former Aerospace Executive Vice President, and his wife, Joan. We would also like to recognize our honorary commanders. Mr. Greg Carpenter, Honorary Commander for the 61st Air Base Group and City Manager of City of El Segundo. Chief Bill Whalen, Honorary Commander for 61st Security Forces and Chief of the El Segundo Police Department. Ms. Donna Duperon, Honorary Commander for SMC RN and President and CEO of the Torrance Area Chamber of Commerce. Dr. Melissa Moore, Honorary Commander for SMC LE and Superintendent of the El Segundo Unified School District. Ms. Barbara Voss, Honorary Commander for SMC MC and the Economic Development Manager for the City of El Segundo. Mr. John Talichet, Honorary Commander for SMC GP and President and CEO, Specialty Restaurant Corporation. Ms. Emily Jones Goodwin, Honorary Commander for SMC DS and Vice President, Public Affairs for Author Services Incorporated. And Dr. Steve Plency, Executive Director of the SMC Remote Sensing Directorate and President of the Schriever Chapter of the Air Force Association. We are also pleased to have with us all other commanders, directors, chiefs, Aerospace Corporation executives, and industry partners.
We will introduce and welcome the family members of the honorees in a moment. First, I would like to provide you a background of today's event. In 2007, the General Bernard A. Schriever Chapter of the Air Force Association, with support from industry partners, sponsored and commissioned the statue of General Bernard A. Schriever that stands before you. In November 2007, the Space and Missile Systems Center dedicated the statue and wall as the General Schriever Memorial. The first 6 names were engraved on the wall in 2014, when we celebrated the 60th anniversary of SMC. Today we will unveil the names of the 2018 honorees. This unveiling ceremony is a momentous event, recognizing some of the early space and missile pioneers who have made tremendous contributions to our community. The Schriever Wall of Honor is intended to honor individuals who have had permanent and positive effects on the beginning, growth, and evolution of national security, space, or missile programs, while assigned to or closely connected with SMC or its organizational predecessors. Nominees can be military members, government civilians, and employees of private industries, FFRDCs, or other non-government organizations. Selections are made from these groups without prejudice. Each December, bios of 15 candidates are sent to representatives of the Aerospace Corporation, SMC, the Schriever Chapter, the Armed Forces Communications and Electronics Association, the National Defense Industrial Association, and the Southern California Aerospace Professional Representatives. They are asked to select 6 individuals for recognition the following year.
Our honorees for 2018 are Mr. James R. Dempsey, Major General John E. Culpa Jr., Lieutenant General Forrest S. McCartney, Mr. Hideyoshi Nakamura, Colonel Robert J. Wetzel, and Dr. James B. Woodford Jr. We will now take a few moments to welcome our honored guests, the families of the 2018 honorees.
Representing the Mr. James R. Dempsey family are his son, David Dempsey, and wife, Betsy, and his daughter, Annie Dempsey.
Major General John E. Culpa Jr., who died this past March, knew he was to be honored this year and had planned to attend this ceremony. Representing the Jack Culpa family is his widow, Marcia Culpa.
Representing the Lieutenant General Forrest S. McCartney family are his daughter, Maggie Sizemore, and his daughter, Worthy McCartney.
Representing the Mr. Hideyoshi Nakamura family are his daughter, Patty Bohall, his daughter, Joanne Ostroy, his son, James Nakamura, and wife, Teresa, his son, Ted Nakamura, and wife, Cindy, his son, Kim Nakamura, his grandson, Koichi Ostroy, his granddaughter, Noriko Ostroy and Alex Ramos, his grandson, David Nakamura, and wife, Laura, his granddaughter, Christine Kavanaugh, and husband, Nick, his grandson, Andrew Nakamura, and Aaron Eisenberg, and his grandson, Peyton Nakamura, and his granddaughter, Marina Nakamura.
Representing the Colonel Albert J. Wetzel family are his son, Russ Wetzel, his grandson, Franklin Wetzel, and his grandson, Peter Wetzel.
Representing the Dr. James B. Woodford Jr. family are his widow, Joy Woodford, his son, Bill Woodford, and wife, Elaine Varner, his daughter, Kathy Kennedy, his son, Tom Woodford, and wife, Elizabeth, his granddaughter, Sarah Woodford, his granddaughter, Jen Kennedy, and his granddaughter, Becca Woodford. Ladies and gentlemen, it is now my pleasure to introduce the commander, Space and Missile Systems Center, Lieutenant General John F. Thompson.
Well, good afternoon. I just got in from LAX literally 30 minutes ago, so good thing I had my speech ahead of time and got to practice it on the plane this morning on my way home from Dayton, Ohio. In any case, welcome everybody. First of all, I would like to thank the GP Choir. I mean, they represent the Global Positioning System, but today, GPS stands for Great and Perfect Singers, because they did a great job on the national anthem. Also, thanks to the Honor Guard. Welcome to all of our distinguished guests, except General Snelzer. You already got introduced twice, so we're not gonna embarrass you again. And family and friends of our honorees today, welcome. Thank you for joining us here today. Welcome to Space and Missile Systems Center, the birthplace of military space. It's a privilege to have everyone in the audience with us today, and it's a privilege for those of you who are family members to honor your relatives, your family members, titans of the aerospace industry, titans of Space and Missile Systems Center, and now titans of the Schriever Wall of Honor. The 2018 class, Generals Culpa and McCartney, Colonel Wetzel, Mr. Dempsey, Dr. Woodford, and Mr. Nakamura. We know these names from the contributions to the great work of our center and to our nation's history. This 9-foot bronze statue of General Bernard Schriever reminds me of the words that General Myers, Richard Myers, the former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, said at General Schriever's funeral, Arlington National Cemetery in July of 2005. General Myers praised General Schriever as a, quote, a man of deep conviction, steady determination, bold vision, a man of action, as well as a man of ideals. Schriever had the vision to see beyond the limits of technology and politics, to see the role of space and ballistic missiles and how they could play in deterring our enemies and preserving peace. And he had the courage to press forward despite all of the technical challenges and all of the critics that said it wouldn't work. General Myers went on to say that he was glad General Schriever, quote, had lived to see the end of the Cold War, the Berlin Wall coming down, millions of people enjoying free speech and electing their own governments. These honorees today are part of that legacy. General Myers finally shared at the gravesite, at some future high court of history, They will sit in judgment of each one of us. Were we really people of courage? Were we truly people of judgment? Were we truly people of integrity? And were we truly people of dedication? History will record that General Bernard Schriever was just such a man. The 2018 honorees are truly also men of courage, judgment, integrity, and dedication. Mr. Dempsey, who flew low-level, unarmed, unescorted reconnaissance missions along the beaches of Normandy prior to the D-Day invasion, and was personally called out by General Schriever when he was a major as one of the leading officers working to reorganize Air Force research, development, procurement, and logistics of space assets. General Culpa, who passed away earlier this year, I was lucky enough to meet him during the holidays of 2017. He spent his entire life in service to his country. In fact, he once told a young, ambitious captain who may be in the audience today, "When you've made enough mistakes, then we'll make you a program director." All you program directors, listen up. General Forrest McCartney, who as the director of Kennedy Space Center led the Kennedy Space Center through those tumultuous times after the Challenger accident in 1986, and through the successful return to flight of the Space Shuttle Discovery in 1988. Mr. Hideshi Nakamura and Dr. James Woodford, who worked on the infamously named Program 621 Bravo and co-authored the aptly named Woodford-Nakamura Report. That led to the development and the universal gold standard in positioning, navigation, and timing that enables the American democracy and our way of life, otherwise known as the Global Positioning System. And finally, Colonel Wetzel, known throughout his career as Mr. Titan. According to Colonel Wetzel's son, Russ, his dad once fashioned a rudimentary infrared telescope. To do it, he used a car battery, a starter motor, 2 headlights, and a red filter. And he did it all so pilots could see better while doing parachute runs. As you can see, and as you'll hear more on later, the men that are being inducted this year are truly men of courage, judgment, integrity, and dedication. They are truly part of Space and Missile Systems Center's legacy, and it's a pleasure to be here today to honor their work. Thank you again to all the families of the honorees for celebrating and recognizing the pioneering accomplishments of your family members. Their work was and continues to be vital to the national interests of the United States of America. Also, thank you to the Air Force Association, Chapter 147, for your outstanding support to the Schriever Wall of Honor and what you do every day, day in and day out, for Team SMC. Thank you all, and let's get on with the rest of this induction.
Thank you, General Thompson. At this time, it gives me great pleasure to introduce the Chairman of the Board of the Schriever Chapter of the Air Force Association and former Vice Commander, Air Force Space Command, Major General Retired Thomas D. Taverney.
One of the things I learned in the military is my speech has to be shorter than the boss's. So I won't keep you too long, but I would like to welcome the families of these great men that we're inducting this year. This weekend is kind of a story of past and present. Today we recognize people that helped build the space program. And tomorrow night we recognize those people who are helping the space program of today. And while the challenges are very different, back then they were facing challenges of, can it even work? Can we even get a launch vehicle off the ground and get things into orbit? If we get them into orbit, you know, will the electronics last more than a few days? Can we get satellites that can actually take pictures, do navigation, see what the weather is? So they were forging ground at a time when our adversary overseas were forging the same ground, and it was a race. And so they were faced with great challenges, and whether it was in rockets or in GPS or in just organizing the SMC, then SAMSO then, to do their job, they got us there. For the people of tomorrow, you face a challenge almost equally as daunting. It's a different challenge. It's a challenge. One of the things that you can see if you read up on all the men that are going in the being inducted this year, you'll see that they all were agents of change. They never felt tied down by what had happened before or what had worked. Even if they thought something could be better, they did it. And that's why we were constantly improving, because they didn't settle for the status quo. We're in a big era of change today. I know that General Thompson and all of you have been leading a great change at SMC to do things faster and more differently, because we're reacting to what our adversaries have done. And our adversaries are changing faster than we could have ever believed, and we need to do change to keep up with them. So in 30 years, some of you are going to be up here. So, you know, look to these people as guide-ons for what you want to do with your future. And I'd like to also welcome the senior staff, especially General Hamill. General Hamill was one of the big pushers in getting this started. We went many years at SMC before we had a Hall of Fame, a recognition of the people that helped build this great organization and helped build a space program. General Hamill was one of the great pushers that helped get the AFA energized into doing this. So you get to see some of the fruits of your labor, General Hamill. So at any rate, I think this is a wonderful day. Don't let it end with today. Read about the people. They have short bios, but go online. You'll find a lot about them. You'll find a lot about the character. And that's really what made them great, was their character. They were intelligent, sure, but they had great character, great drive, and they were never satisfied with the status quo. And I encourage you to read about them. Go online. You can find out. They're all accessible online. You can find great stories about them. So I encourage you to do that and become the next generation of people in the wall. So, General Thompson, I think it's time for us to head to the wall.
James Dempsey enrolled at the University of Alabama prior to attending West Point. He served as a P-38 reconnaissance pilot in Europe during World War II. He remained in the Air Force after the war and pursued higher engineering degrees at the University of Michigan. He served as Chief of Projects in the Guided Missile Directorate, Headquarters, United States Air Force, and later as Chief of Projects and Operations Officer at United States Air Force Missile Test Center at Cape Canaveral, Florida. In 1953, then Colonel Dempsey was identified by government leadership as an ideal managerial candidate for the Intercontinental Ballistic Missile Program. The Convair Company subsequently selected Dempsey for the role, which required him to leave the service. The massive Atlas project encompassed 30,000 employees and another 60,000 subcontractors. Although it saw only brief service as an ICBM, Atlas became the basis of a launch vehicle family that remains in operation. Early successes included the first successful use of Atlas as a launch vehicle for Project SCORE and the adaptation of Atlas for the manned Mercury and Gemini programs. In 1965, Dempsey was named president of Convair. He departed for the Avco Corporation the following year, becoming vice president of its government products group. He stayed there until 1975, overseeing flight of the company's Apollo capsule heat shield and Minuteman re-entry vehicles. Thereafter, he served on the boards of several corporations and mutual funds until retiring in 1994.
Major General John E. Culpa, Jr. General Culpa entered the United States Military Academy at West Point, New York in 1946. He graduated in 1950 with a bachelor's degree in military engineering. After flight training, he completed multiple assignments to bomber and reconnaissance units worldwide. The general subsequently earned a master's degree in aeronautical engineering from from the Air Force Institute of Technology in 1957. Following completion of Air Command and Staff College in 1963, General Coppa joined Space Systems Division at Los Angeles Air Force Station as a project manager. In 1965, he was named the second System Program Director for the Defense Meteorological Satellite Program. General Coppa graduated from the National War College in 1969. He commanded the Air Force Avionics Laboratory and served as Deputy for Engineer of the Air Force in Washington, D.C. as the Deputy Director, Office of Space Systems. He became the Director in 1973. Following a tour as the Principal Deputy for Plans to the Deputy Director of Central Intelligence, he was named the Director of Special Projects, Office of the Secretary of the Air Force, in 1975. He assumed the duties of the Deputy Commander for Space Operations in 1980. In that capacity, General Coppa oversaw the DoD components of the first Space Shuttle missions. He retired from service 1 April 1983.
Lieutenant General Forrest S. McCartney. General McCartney received a bachelor's degree in electrical engineering from the Alabama Polytechnic Institute in 1952. He received his commission as a distinguished graduate of the school's ROTC program. After earning a master's degree in nuclear engineering from the Air Force Institute of Technology in 1955, General McCartney served as a project officer at the Special Weapons Center, Kirtland Air Force Base, New Mexico. In 1959, General McCartney joined the newly formed Satellite Control Facility at Sunnyvale, California, as a satellite controller. He subsequently worked as a project officer on the Titan III program at the Office of Space Activities, Headquarters Air Force Space Command at Andrews Air Force Base, Maryland. The general was eventually assigned to the Space and Missile Systems Organization at Los Angeles Air Force Station in 1974. He served as the Air Force Satellite Communication Systems Program Director, Fleet Satellite Communication Systems Program Director, and the Deputy for Space Communication Systems. In 1979, General McCartney moved to Norton Air Force Base, California as Vice Commander of the Ballistic Missile Office. He assumed command of the Ballistic Missile Office and directorship of the MX program the following year. General McCartney was named Vice Commander of the Space Division in 1982. In 1983, he assumed command of Space Division and served as Vice Commander, Space Command. Upon activation of the United States Space Command in 1985, he was redesignated Commander of the Space Division. General McCartney retired 1 August 1987.
Mr. Hideyoshi Nakamura. Hideyoshi Nakamura earned a bachelor's degree and master's degree in mechanical engineering from the University of Minnesota. Mr. Nakamura initially joined the Aerospace Corporation in June 1961 as a member of the technical staff in the Propulsion Department, Systems Research and Planning Division. He had previously worked for General Dynamics Convair as a senior group engineer and for the NASA Lewis Flight Laboratory as a research scientist. Mr. Nakamura held a number of positions at the Aerospace Corporation, including directorships of the Data Systems Office, Subsystems Office, and Advanced Concepts Office. He also served as senior engineer and later senior director of the Plans and Systems Architecture Office. In 1968, Mr. Nakamura co-authored the Navigation Satellite Study with James B. Woodford, Jr. The publication, which came to be known as the Woodford-Nakamura Report, explored concepts in architecture that ultimately led to the development of GPS.
Colonel Albert J. Wetzel. Colonel Albert "Red" Wetzel graduated from Tulane University in 1939 with a bachelor's degree in electrical engineering. Called to active duty in December 1940, Colonel Wetzel completed pilot training and subsequently served as a project officer and test pilot in the Special Weapons Branch of Materiel Command at Wright Field, Ohio. He earned a master's degree in aeronautical and astronomical engineering from the Johns Hopkins University in 1950. After several years of contemplating missile and space-related topics, Colonel Wetzel directed the Titan WS-107A2 intercontinental ballistic missile program from its concept stage to operational readiness. His leadership resulted in the decision to make a complete configuration change for Titan II rather than rely on incremental changes in Titan I. Improvements in Titan II led to its successful use as a launch vehicle for the manned Gemini program and enabled the development of future heavy lift configurations associated with Titan III and Titan IV. Colonel Wetzel subsequently served as Executive Assistant to the Commander of Ballistic Systems Division, Executive Director of the Air Force Council, and Director of Strategic Programs in the Office of the Undersecretary of Defense for Research and Engineering. He retired from active duty in 1965, but remained a contributor to the Rocket and Space Panel of the President's Science Advisory Board until 1971.
Dr. James B. Woodford, Jr. Dr. James Woodford received his bachelor's degree, master's degree, and doctorate in electrical engineering from Carnegie Institute of Technology in 1948, 1949, and 1950. Prior to joining the Aerospace Corporation in 1960, Dr. Woodford was associated with Space Technology Laboratories as staff engineer in their Advanced Systems Planning Division. He entered industry from academia after serving as associate professor of electrical engineering and assistant department head at the Carnegie Institute of Technology. Dr. Woodford held a number of positions at the Aerospace Corporation, including associate group director of the Navigation Communications System Directorate, associate group director of the Advanced Orbital Systems Directorate, and principal director of the Government Support Division. In 1968, Dr. Woodford co-authored the Navigation Satellite Study with Hideyoshi Nakamura. The publication, which came to be known as the Woodford-Nakamura Report, explored concepts in architecture that ultimately led to the development of GPS.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us today for the General Schriever Wall of Honor ceremony and induction of this year's honorees. Please stand for the singing of the Air Force song and the departure of the official party.